I do want to take a break and stop for a moment and remember John Dingell. It has been quite a week, and I thought of both of you. Both of you had special relationships with Congressman John Dingell.
Yes.
And you especially, Nolan, were very close friends. What has, I guess, I know it's been a whirlwind week.
It has been.
But your reaction to the outpouring and the celebration, really, of his life.
You know, in the last weeks, months of his life, anytime we'd talk, anytime I'd visit him, he was always concerned about whether people still remembered him. And if you saw what was, you know, what went on Monday and Tuesday, both at the viewing and then at the church in Dearborn, I mean, people clearly not only remembered him, but still loved him. And he was always concerned that he had become irrelevant. And I think this was a...
Which is crazy, right?
Which is crazy.
You know, in his last days, he had two presidents call him. Bill Clinton called him, George Bush called him. He told George Bush, man, I wish you were still president instead of the jackass we have now. So he hadn't lost any of his, you know, spunk.
His spark, really. But to see people remembering him and people saying, well, we'll never have another John Dingell, or he kind of
I
broke
don't know
the
that
mold.
we will. If you think about the time he served, all of the things that he got done, I've been saying all week, you know, there are great lives and then there are great men, and often the two don't converge in one vessel the way they did with John Dingell. I mean, he wasn't just super accomplished and lived this extraordinary life, but just a great person, a great man, and an important man to so many people.
Well, he was a man of a different era. I mean, he was a man of great honor and courage and service. It was never about John Dingell. It was about his people and the people he loved and cared about.
Yeah, and we know that you're heading to Washington, D.C., Nolan, to celebrate his life and remember him. And, of course, our love and our thoughts go out to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell as well. And we're going to leave you with Nolan's conversation with John Dingell back in November, just as his book called The Dean, The Best Seat in the House was published. It's a look back at his historic service in his own words.
You spend a lot of time in this book talking about your family's history in America. And I was surprised to learn that you are the skin of Polish immigrants who came here in the 19th century, ended up in Texas to work in the agriculture business there.
It was a poor family. They actually made several trips over to bring all of their folks into the United States.
I won't even try, John, to pronounce the original family name.
Well, it's not that hard. It's Dzinglewicz.
Dzinglewicz.
Yeah, what it means is it means a blacksmith.
Your grandfather was a blacksmith when he came to this country and was trying to make a living selling watermelons, and he'd had about enough of that there in Texas.
So he was trying to sell them for a nickel apiece, and he couldn't sell them. So he just dumped them in the side of the road in a ditch, put the family all in the wagon, and they headed all north, and they kept going and going.
Your dad's family came here. Your dad grew up here. Basically came up from the streets, ended up as a printer at the Detroit Free Press, came down with a very terrible disease. They called it consumption then. It's tuberculosis today. Went to Colorado to recuperate, got his start in politics out there, but then came back to the Detroit, ended up in the Congress, and spent 20 years there.
He was a guy who actually led the country, and Social Security, most of the titles.
He was a New Dealer, right?
New Deal, and he brought that into being.
But you grew up in the House, John. You started as a page in the Congress when you were 11 years old.
Yes.
When you were 15, you were in the House chambers the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Franklin Roosevelt stood up before the Congress and gave his Day of Infamy speech.
Yes, he did.
You remember that like it was yesterday.
I do, because everybody knew that it was something very important to the future history of the world.
You got the call when you were 29 years old that your father had died while serving in Congress. You entered the Congress right at the height of the civil rights struggle. And what you say in this book, the vote you're most proud of in Congress was your vote in favor of the Civil Rights Act. But it wasn't a popular vote here in your district.
It was a very unpopular vote. It was a hard vote. It was not easy, and it was a vote which was difficult because the people, truthfully, didn't want it. There were all manner of lies told about it and what it meant.
One of the distinguishing features of your career is that you were also one of the most powerful voices for the Second Amendment during your time in Congress. You were a board member of the NRA and a very proud and active member for a number of years until you resigned. We are still struggling with what to do about gun laws in this country. What's the answer there, John?
We don't know, and we may not know anytime soon. But the fact of the matter is, this is something that has to be addressed by and for the people so that we can live together as brothers and sisters and as fellow Americans. And one of the roots of it is seeing to it that we protect mental health, because without mental health, we can't protect the people of the country.
You were replaced in Congress by your wife, Debbie Dingell, who ran for your seat. How's she doing?
I am very proud. I am one who believes that she is a better congressman than her husband was.
And does she seek your counsel?
Once in a while, yes. And once in a while, she rejects it.
Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
And once in a while, she does what she damn pleases, which is usually the way it should be.
Obviously, anyone who reads this book understands the very close bond between you and your father. John, one of the things your father was very focused on was universal health care. And you introduced his bill his bill didn't get passed while he was in Congress, but you reintroduced it at the start of every new congressional term while you were in Congress.
And we're going to sign this bill.
A version of it finally passed with the Affordable Care Act under President Barack Obama. What was that moment like for you? You were the presiding officer that day of the House and sat beside the president as he signed the bill. What was that moment like for you?
Great satisfaction. We had done our duty, we had served the people, we had worked with the president, we had carried out our constitutional functions, and we had been truthful to the people that we owed everything to.
We are done.
It was a time of great urgency, and it was something that was of desperate importance to all Americans.
In your mind, has it worked?
It's had terrible opposition, but the answer is yes. I walk into the hospital and they say, "Thank you, Mr. Dingell." And I say, "Why?" They say, "For the bill." They say, because that bill is something which has made it possible for my wife or me or my kids to live. That's damn important, Nolan.
I've heard you say a number of times, John, that your goal was to make your father proud by who you've become and your service in the House. Do you believe you've accomplished that goal?
I think history will tell us better than we can say. But the answer is yes, I do. And I think that it will show us more and more as time passes. Now, is anybody going to remember the name Dingell? Probably not. But they will remember how to do these things and to return the country to the ground that it should be on, so that it can do that which it should do to serve the people for whom we take oath and say, I will support and defend the Constitution.